Perception is not always reality. It's easy to read present circumstances in light of past experiences. Some of our misperceptions in the present might be related to PTSD. A, you might not see things the right way. You've probably heard the phrase, perception is reality, a few times. It's a mantra. People repeat, perception is reality. Perception is reality. Now, as correct as the statement sounds, it's just not accurate. Perception is simply your perspective. It's how things look from where you stand. Perception might just be the way you view things. That means perception might be reality, but it might not be reality at all. Well, let me show you. Suppose I write a big number 6 on the ground. I draw it in large 6-foot-tall letters using this number and all of the information to denote the number of my biological kids in my family who have a birthday before Salter, my youngest kid who just celebrated his 6th birthday, has another, his 7th. Now, full disclosure, when we first penned this example in another one of our books, Warrior Hope, and in that curriculum, Salter was at that point 6. Now, years later, he is 11, but you get the idea here. What I'm driving at is my 6 is laced with numerous objective facts. He was 6. The number is 6 foot tall. Well, let's say for all of the illustration here, and for the purposes, you see me from afar and you walk my way.
Why did you draw a 9 on the ground?
You ask. Now, you knew I was going to pull it this way. I was going to make kind of me the good guy and you the one that didn't quite get it. I didn't. I say I painted a large 6, and then I explain all of this again to you, all of the whys. You don't understand. Looking at the number from your unique vantage point, you have the audacity to correct me. Right? Now I get it. It's just a humorous analogy.
If Salter is 6, then why did you write a 9?
Well, I suggest you have it wrong. I didn't. I made a 6. I walk around the giant drawing, I trace the large number with my steps, and I tell you while I'm walking, see, look, it's clearly a 6. He's 6. He has 6 biological siblings older than him. This number is 6 foot tall. Look, I'm walking out a 6, and then you say,
No, you just walked out a 9.
Well, you and I go back and forth, round and round, over and over. Question. In this story, who is right? Me or you? Now, from one person's perspective, the number on the ground clearly is a 6. From another's, their perception is it is a 9, obviously. A politically correct cartoon from which we ripped this example and modified it. It said something like this: see, what you see depends on where you stand. Now that cartoon went on to infer that both people saw reality accurately, but both people can't. While there are a lot of things in life that absolutely are in the shades of gray, and that's the norm, many things in life actually are concrete, especially in this example. I intentionally drew a 6. Salter is, well, he was at the time, 6 years old. 6 kids in the family, biological kids, have a birthday before Salter's. Doesn't matter where you stand on those issues. Doesn't matter what your perception or your perspective-driven opinion is, none of those facts change. Your interpretation of the facts might change, but the facts don't. In other words, your perspective, your perception might not be reality at all. Now, granted, this is just a far-fetched, humorous example. And now that we've framed the conversation, let's take it and go a bit more serious.
Perception, perspective. Your vantage point. We always see things in light of past, including both good and bad experiences, our current situation, and our hopes and dreams. It's important to note that how you see things is often limited and is rarely 100% accurate. We are always lacking information that we would have from a different perspective. As it relates to trauma, we sometimes read present situations in light of past stressors. Notably, beliefs, perspectives we hold often create stuck points that can become difficult to move beyond. These faulty beliefs can be exaggerated or distorted in many ways about important issues such as self, which is to say I'm helpless, others, people can't be trusted, and the world, it's unsafe out there. Heroes are not immune from these stuck points. In fact, with intentionality working against these, heroes can automatically drift into these mental ditches.
B, sometimes we perceive the present in light of our past. For over a decade, we've worked with veterans, particularly in the arena of mental, emotional, and spiritual health. These valiant men and women regularly communicate how things they experience now are often colored by things they experienced then, back when they served. We created a workbook and a video course based on our first two documentaries. The links for all of those are available for you below. And we created that course designed to empower veterans to find healing from the past and forge ahead towards a new mission. We call the course Warrior Hope and facilitate warriors using the curriculum through groups known as Centers of Hope. One night during one of our meetings, this conversation surfaced.
I don't like the 4th of July.
One man confessed. Again, this was during one of our weekly meetings.
At night, when everyone begins shooting fireworks, it seems excessive. 1 or 2 blasts might be okay, but the ongoing barrage sounds exactly like the mortar fire that came at us in Afghanistan. I'm obviously proud of our nation and the 4th, but I can't do those sounds. I go inside, close the doors and curtains. I usually turn on music or watch a loud movie.
Another veteran then chimed in and offered,
Still lurch when I hear a car backfire or encounter any other abrupt sound. My body automatically jolts, and I look to take cover from gunfire.
A third warrior suggested it wasn't just sounds that affected him. One day, as we sat at my kitchen table, I handed him a bottle of frankincense. He immediately scooted his chair back, his face froze, and he gently cried. Are you all right? I asked.
I just need a moment.
He whispered. I nodded, remaining quiet. A few long minutes later, he came back to the moment.
I'm fine. That smell was everywhere in the Middle East when I was deployed. I saw a lot of hard things there, and inhaling this transported me back to where I was when all of that was happening.
Now, in each of these instances, the mind and the emotions pulled someone out of this moment and thrust them into another one. They began interpreting or perceiving the present in light of the past. Here's why. Any encounter that marks you is filed in your memory bank, along with the accompanying sights, sounds, and smells, as well as many times even the physical texture and the feel of something. The data moves into your subconscious mind such that even when you're not actively thinking about those past experiences, the complete event instantly floods your conscious mind anytime you encounter the same sights, sounds, or smells.
Trauma response, traumatic recall. Anytime a memorable event occurs, the sights and sounds and smells associated with that event are stored in your memory bank, most often in the subconscious. In the future, when you encounter the same sights, sounds, or smells, the memory may rush back to your conscious mind. Suddenly, you're aware of something you weren't even thinking about. This is true of both good and bad memories. It's why certain songs transport us to specific fond moments in our past. As it relates to trauma, when you encounter the same sights, sounds, or smells in the present that marked you in the past, your body might automatically go into self-protection mode and prepare you to face a similar situation as the one you encountered previously. You can be triggered by touch and emotion as well. Trauma responses can be momentary or long-lasting. There are several ways these responses manifest. Flight: workaholic, overthinking, anxiety, panic, difficulty being still, perfectionism. Fight: anger, outburst, attempting to control things, manipulating people, explosive behaviors. Freeze: feeling stuck, disassociating from self or others, isolating, numbness, difficulty making decisions. Fawn: people-pleasing, identity confusion, overwhelmed, codependent, lack of boundaries. These four responses fall into two categories. Number one, hyperarousal. Flight and fight, the first two, create elevated responses to sights and sounds, results in ultra-vigilant, edgy, irritable tendencies. And hypoarousal, which is number two, freeze and fawn, often result in burnout, depression, decreased motivation, and a sense of wanting to give up.
Now, this is how God designed us. Furthermore, it works extremely well for heroes. You've likely encountered a tough situation while serving and known what to do almost on autopilot because your training and past experiences immediately came back to you. Interestingly enough, this works for both good memories and bad memories alike. It's why you can hear a song on the radio and immediately remember your high school prom or some other memorable event. And it's why you might hear fireworks or a backfiring engine and, well, misinterpret. Fireworks are not mortar fire. Cars with troubled engines aren't guns. My kitchen table isn't a camel driver's tent in the middle of Saudi Arabia. In the same way, your perception assured you I sketched a 9 on the ground instead of a 6. Their perceptions in these examples assured them of something that was not true. In other words, perception was not reality. Past experience interposed the present moment, causing them to see things differently. Furthermore, in each example, what they saw was incorrect, even if it was completely explainable.
I've been in the fire service for about 2 years, and I was working for an ALS department in the Birmingham area as advanced life support. So we have everything on the truck that we need if we run a medical call to be able to sustain a potential patient that has a life-altering event.
I want to share with you the story from one of my friends. It was a call he received to go intervene into a life-saving situation.
Shoot, I guess 12 years later.
It's going to start off, notice this is 12 years after a different significant event in his life. Both of these are going to correlate.
It came out about 1:30 in the morning. It was cold. We responded, code 1 with lights, and showed up on scene. And by the time we had gotten there, obviously the police department was on scene and they had it lit up pretty well to where we could kind of see what was going on. The vehicle was off the roadway about 20 feet, and you could see where just the whole front end of the vehicle had been crushed in. They had been traveling at a pretty high rate of speed. The motor had been the motor was detached from the chassis. That's how hard they had hit. The motor detached from the chassis. Part of the transmission was found about 65, 70 feet away from the vehicle. They had rolled several times, and there were two patients. The first patient was extricated before we got on to the second patient. Was a driver, and he was in a position where we had to cut multiple doors to get him out. And so we're on scene, and training kicks in, and kind of going through the routine motions. I end up on the head of the patient after we had made access to him. And the sights and the sounds are very similar on just about every one of those calls that are really bad. We got a lot of lights, we got a lot of sounds. At the time, we were using extrication equipment that ran off of a generator and a pump, so we had hoses. So you got generator noise, you got hydraulic pump noise, you have the noise of the actual machinery running. And I remember getting this guy out, and when we get this guy out, and he's got a very weak pulse, he's not responding to anything, and I had to go up a small embankment to get him to the stretcher. And I remember looking around for a medical unit or an ambulance, and the ambulance wasn't on scene yet. And that's when the tightness kind of in my chest started with getting loaded up and into the back of the ambulance, and they take over patient care from there. But in the meantime, I feel like I have just a straight jacket that has the pull cords where it kind of cuts off the circulation in your chest. And I'm just like, and it's not getting any better. And so I start taking deep breaths, and I don't know what's going on. I never had anything like this happen before on call. Cold sweats, and it's cold outside. It's probably in the 40s. There's no reason why I should be sweating like this. Start seeing spots. I'm like, all right, this is not normal. So at that point, I'm trying to get all of my instructional firefighting gear off, because I'm like, I gotta get out of this gear, something's going on. So I go to the back tailboard of the truck, and I sit down after I get my gear off, and like, I can feel it feels like my airway's closing. And so I'm trying not to freak out, trying not to let the guys in my crew know what's going on. I'm like, I can handle this. And so I finally get all my gear off, and so I make my way around to the officer side of the truck, and I sit down next to the wheel well, and I'm just sitting on the ground, like trying to collect my thoughts, trying to catch my breath. And finally, after about 15 or 20 minutes, and a bottle of water, and trying not to throw up on the side of the road, I kind of gained my composure, and I'm still.
Now, I asked TJ, was this the first time that you had encountered this type of call? Was this a new experience to you? Because in my mind, if this was new, if this was an elevated experience, it might have explained the reaction. However, here's what he told me.
I would say it's probably, north of 150. Probably in the 2 years, I'd had 3 or 4 where there was an obvious death in the field where we got there, and the patient was not viable. So that wasn't new. And all of those calls, other than probably 1 or 2, were during the day. So obviously, daytime interaction versus nighttime interaction, I guess, played a part, because daytime you can kind of see your surroundings and gauge what's going on.
Let's go back to the original event. that might have sparked all of this. Generally, as first responders, veterans, heroes of all kinds, we're often thinking in terms of interacting with a civilian, real-world, normal life situation in light of past pains from the line of duty. However, this is one that was the exact opposite, and he interprets a situation while serving as if he was just a typical everyday civilian. Notice the entrance to this entire story.
I was 22 years old, and this was before I got into the fire service. I'd gone out drinking with some friends and just made a bad decision to drive. Obviously, I'm one of those people that kind of learn the hard way, but so in the course of the night, we had drank quite a bit, and I made a decision to drive to my next destination. And in the course of that, I had a single car NBC where I'd hit a guardrail and ended up in a median of sorts. It's a divided highway, and the divided highway was all wooded, and so there was an embankment that sloped away from the roadway that was wooded. So if you didn't know I was there, you couldn't really see me. And I don't remember any of the events leading up to my wreck. Unfortunately, that's how much I had drank. I was, like I said, poor decision to drink and drive, and in no state should I have been behind the wheel. But according to the records, I was found at about 5 o'clock in the morning. They said I wrecked at about 2:30, 3 o'clock. So I was on the side of the interstate outside of my vehicle for about 2.5 hours. And during the course of the wreck, I'd been ejected from the vehicle, and the driver's side door slammed on my left leg and broke my tibia and drove me underneath the vehicle. And so when law enforcement found me, obviously they had called the fire department and paramedics to come on scene. And so they were on scene, and I guess part of my subconscious remembers the extrication where they had to use the tools at their disposal to free my leg and then get me up the side of the embankment and onto a stretcher and into a helicopter. I woke up on the operating table just long enough for the anesthesiologist to knock me back out, and I woke up roughly 12 hours later in a hospital bed and didn't really know what was going on. So all that being said, in that state, luckily enough, it was cold enough to where my body kept me alive just from taking all the blood and basically sending it to the center of my body to keep my vital organs working. And
Notice this, it actually took a professional, a therapist, to pull the pieces together for him to connect the dots. Notice she confirmed it was an experience of traumatic recall, and he did go see a therapist. He did seek out the help that he needed.
Started talking to a couple of other people and made a call to a local therapist. Kind of shared my story with the therapist, and she confirmed that was it. I started doing some therapy with her to kind of talk through things to find out what the correlation was. Because obviously, if something like that happens once, the probability of it happening again is not necessarily as high, but there's always that potential. So figured out that I'd suffered from slight anxiety and was able to get on some anxiety meds to try to kick some of that. But that was the one and only time that I ever had anything like that happen. And I guess it was just getting out in front of it before it happened again, I guess, medication-wise. But I've had a couple of really bad accidents post that event and even at the same time of night and not have the same reaction that I had that night. It's, I guess it was just an anomaly in my career. I don't really know how to explain it.
C. Some of our perceptions might be PTSD. Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is a lens which causes people to see the world in certain ways, often misperceiving the way things really are. When the mind and the emotions create false impressions which jerk us into an alternate reality, one we perceive to be true rather than one that actually is true, it might be an indication that we're dealing with past trauma. It turns out this happens to many of us. A lot of the things we see might be related to past hurts, to past internal wounds that we carry around. Left unchecked, those wounds can become the filter whereby we imbue the entire world. These impressions often form the basis for how we view or relate to someone or to something. They can be long-lasting, and they can also be inaccurate. When wrong, these impressions can cause us to take unnecessary action or fail to take the needed action. Perhaps you've experienced this and later realized you need to reconsider that initial impression about someone or something. People often associate PTSD as being triggered by sounds, the car backfiring, an alarm, fireworks, thunder. However, as we saw just a few pages ago, it can just as well be triggered by an odor, by something seen, something tasted, or even by a familiar touch. Regardless of how it happens, for many people, PTSD can become the default lens for what would be an everyday experience. The American Psychiatric Association defines PTSD as follows.
A psychiatric disorder that can occur in people who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event, such as a natural disaster, a serious accident, a terrorist act, war, combat, rape, or other violent personal assault.
Now, I want to show you some of the variables in this definition. We circled a few of the issues we need to consider on the graphic that's here in the book, so let me just highlight those via audio to you. There are 3 of them that I want to point out. Here's the first.
Can.
PTSD can occur when you face a traumatic situation, but enduring a tough situation doesn't mean it will come. It can happen, but it doesn't always. Second,
Experienced or witnessed.
PTSD can result from a first-hand encounter or by watching something. Some experts suggest chaplains and clinicians often carry trauma because they repeatedly hear everyone else's stories. That might be more akin to that compounding little t trauma we discussed earlier in the book. Third,
Such as.
PTSD can come through a variety of means. The definition isn't meant to supply a complete list of every possible scenario that could cause PTSD. The list: natural disaster, serious accident, terrorist act, war and combat, rape, other violent personal assault. It is not exhaustive. It's meant to provide potential examples. Now, many people consider PTSD a more recent development of modern warfare. We'll address the first responder perspective in a moment, particularly since the term post-traumatic stress disorder did not come into popular usage until after Vietnam. However, historical evidence indicates even warriors in ancient times suffered its effects. Though it was identified by different terms, we see examples of the phenomena we refer to as PTSD throughout history. Now, in the book, there's a graphic here that says PTSD, post-traumatic stress, is not new. It happened in biblical times. In fact, we created a course that walks through the Bible, looking at different warriors and how they encountered post-traumatic stress in Scripture. It occurred during the Civil War. We referred to it then as soldier's heart. World War I and World War II, we referred to post-traumatic stress as shell shock. During Korea and Vietnam, it was referred to as combat fatigue or battle fatigue. Today, we refer to the same condition that has been seen throughout history as post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder.
During the Civil War, we had veterans from both sides that had experienced the war, the horrors of the war, the death, the destruction. That given what we had in those days, we didn't have psychiatric medicine, we didn't have psychology. They took all these symptoms and they decided to call it soldier's heart. During World War I, they decided to call it shell shock.
A very famous case of a shell shock victim is Wilfred Owen, who wrote a poem called Mental Cases, in which he looks at shell shock. He describes them with horrific detail. These minds of these men have been ravished by death, that they've witnessed murders, multitudinous murders. And in the case of Vietnam, if the soldiers come back and are not welcomed, a friend of mine put it this way. He said that soldiers from previous wars came home and were absolved of their sins by a grateful nation. The soldiers of Vietnam received no such absolution.
But it's actually interesting that the word PTSD didn't actually come in until the early 1980s. Now, the war in Vietnam had been over for 5 years, and we were still struggling. We were looking at these young men. What in the heck are we dealing with here?
Now, Shannon Paulson, a clinical social worker, featured in Invisible Scars, the documentary by Crosswinds on post-traumatic stress and military deployment. She notes that its recognition as post-traumatic stress disorder did not occur until 1980.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, it became part of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders in 1980, and that kind of put PTSD in the field of traumatology on the map. It was the first time it was ever acknowledged and published, in a format that led credibility to the field.
According to Paulson, though he'd seen it for not just years and not just decades, but centuries, this was the first time PTSD was formally acknowledged and officially labeled. Now, as it pertains to military service, it's important to note that its effects are not unique to American warriors. PTSD is experienced among those on both sides of a conflict. The same is true with law enforcement. Many times, the civilians they encounter, including the perpetrators, react based on their own past emotional wounds. This can amplify and elevate already intense encounters. After Vietnam, the term post-traumatic stress disorder came into wide usage with the release of DSM-3, and it appears in the current Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, currently DSM-5-TR. This is the criteria that professionals use to diagnose, treat, and prescribe for mental and emotional concerns. Furthermore, even though this book is written for heroes of all types, for veterans, for warriors, for firefighters, for police officers, paramedics, and other first responders, we do need to affirm that we really can't talk about PTSD without acknowledging the role the military played in bringing the conversation to the forefront. Though trauma had been around as long as humans have been, we didn't begin formally labeling mental and emotional hurts as PTSD until we saw it in warriors. D. PTSD causes a reaction to the environment around you. Now, professionals in the field of traumatology often point to 4 broad categories of symptoms to help us recognize PTSD. You can experience multiple symptoms concurrently. In fact, many people do. See if any of these seem familiar. 1. Hypervigilance. It looks like can't relax and has difficulty concentrating and sleeping. Everyday sounds such as a backfiring car or fireworks may cause anxiousness or even elicit a trained response such as duck and roll. Person may tend to sit with their back to the wall in public places in order to be aware of the environment around them. 2. Re-experiencing symptoms. It looks like nightmares or flashbacks where they feel like they are back in that traumatic situation. Certain sights or sounds may trigger these memories of that danger or the stress. They might even awaken in the middle of the night taking evasive action. For instance, hitting a spouse while they're sleeping or pulling a mattress over them because of a nightmare. 3. Avoidance symptoms. It looks like does whatever they can to dodge anything that reminds them of that trauma. They may want to avoid riding in a car or watching certain movies or being around specific people and avoid talking and even thinking about the hurtful memories. They may even use humor to compartmentalize and deflect the deeper issue. Now, footnote right here, using humor. Don't skip over this one, comedy. Most of the first responders that we interviewed in creating this resource mentioned using humor about dead bodies, or even the phrase acne if the person's face was unrecognizable from injuries, or crispy critters if someone had been burned. Though most didn't initially see the connection, this is something to consider. And once we referenced it, they did affirm, you know what, that is a coping mechanism. 4, negative feelings. Looks like may be extremely depressed, might have angry outbursts, or just can't control their emotions. They may be fearful of others or unable to trust other people. Now, you might have just walked through those 4 points and thought those responses seem fairly common. It turns out they are. And depending upon the situation, you might have experienced each of these symptoms before. Most of us have. Again, go back and approach mental and emotional health on a sliding scale. It's not a yes or no. It's a degree of how healthy or unhealthy am I in this area. And we could all benefit from increased health and wholeness in the area of our emotions. It is helpful to note that PTSD, whatever the case, is a response to external stimuli, to sights, to sounds, and to smells and sensory data outside of you. Outside of you. Not inside, outside. So we either bow up and fight against it, or we push back and refuse to address it. We take flight, fight, or flight. The first night I taught this concept in a support group, something dawned on me. You're not abnormal, I said. You're normal. Now, we've said that before in this resource, but this was the first time it really kind of clicked for me. In that group, you're not abnormal, you're normal. You're responding to events completely in line with your training and your experience. You've been conditioned that when a loud sound occurs, that it's either mortar fire or machine guns. The present action of wincing when you hear fireworks and the pop of an engine is consistent with your past. Now, I was speaking to a group of veterans in this particular gathering. One gentleman shook his head in affirmation. He saw it. Then another. Then another. and then the entire group. You see, it's not crazy to take cover when mortar rockets start flying. It's not crazy to take cover when bullets are whizzing by, or when there's a 4-alarm fire, when someone has flipped their lid and is now about to move into full-blown rage coming against you physically, especially if they have a weapon. It's not crazy to kind of brace yourself when, okay, you can fill in the blank. Right now, you're probably thinking and anticipating something from your past experience. You get the idea here. Those are normal responses to events which, by their very nature, create traumatic wounds and demand a defensive posture. Now, that night, I knew I was connecting with the group, so I continued. I said something like, the problem is that you're responding to a different normal than the current normal. You're perceiving something based on your past experience that's no longer true. In other words, your perception is no longer reality, not in this moment right here. Now, one of the attenders made the connection for us all.
That's exactly what it means to be triggered, isn't it?
Now, I thought about getting triggered and what it entails. Until that point, I heard the word used on social media and as a hot word. You know, something said, ironically, to trigger someone and elicit an aggressive response. I'd really not heard the word used in a practically applicable and helpful way. So that night, that guy suddenly made a concept that's well worn and tossed around so often that it virtually loses any semblance of meaning. He made it radically understandable. He helped us comprehend what it means to find yourself triggered. And I get it, we've all been there. We've all, at some point in the past, felt triggered. Here it is. Here's the definition that we placed in the beginning of this book with all the other definitions that you can review.
To find yourself hijacked by your mind or emotions, your thoughts and feelings being uncontrollably fired in a particular direction based on soul wounds of the past. We often misread events in the present in the light of the past. Triggers often create a response which would be appropriate only in a different time and place.
Yes, that's a great point, I said. To get triggered means your emotions suddenly fire off in a certain direction based on some perceived threat from which you need to protect yourself. Now, the conversation after that continued. One of the participants chimed in.
Yeah, and we don't even think of it as being triggered unless it's a false alarm. If it's a real threat, you responded in a healthy way.
And I told the group, I think you were all onto something. And then after a few moments of processing what they were saying, you're really helping me understand some things I've experienced but haven't had language for before. Thank you. Now, to be clear, all triggers, all stresses aren't bad. So let me pull in, this is my friend Mike reading this definition from the beginning of the book about distress and eustress. Again, not all stress, not all triggers are harmful. Some of them can be helpful, and the key is going to be, as you move forward, determining which is which.
Distress versus eustress. Two different categories of pressure. Distress, perceived as bad and can lead to desperation, results in an I can't get my head above the water type of feeling. Eustress, positive energy, generates motivation, raises enthusiasm, and creates focus. Examples of eustress include workout, new responsibilities such as a job promotion, life transitions such as a birth of a child, wedding, or moving, new adventures such as vacation, hobby, joining a team, and competition. We are each unique, so it's important to recognize that what overwhelms one person, which is distress, may energize another, which is eustress. However, if we are self-aware, we can leverage eustress. For example, a fire alarm calls everyone on duty to attention, elevates adrenaline levels, and prepares them for action.
Now, here's what we've learned in this chapter so far. Sometimes we react in the present as if it's the past. Triggered responses are the right responses, but they're the right responses for a different time and place. They're often based on misperceptions, and these misperceptions usually have solid explanations. In fact, almost all the time, they have great explanations. Again, that's what it means to find yourself triggered. The emotional or mental unhealth comes in the fact that we're responding in the wrong time, in the wrong place, making it the wrong thing for the moment. In other words, we're triggered by something in the present that powerfully connects us to the past, not to the present. Or to say it another way, we're responding to something besides the now. That is, there's a disconnect between our perception and our current reality. Remember, the response is normal. It's just the wrong time and place for that response. The response would be on point in another environment. One hero shared it like this. This comes from The Truth About PTSD by Chad Robichaud and Jeremy Steinecker.
When I stopped looking at my mind and body's reaction as a problem, as a disorder, and just understood it was normal for me to respond this way, everything changed for me. In fact, God Himself designed my mind to respond in such a way to trauma. I saw my situation differently and realized I wasn't a disorder, but was functioning properly, by design. We are brilliantly designed to respond to abnormal events of trauma and to survive and protect us.
The problem with these triggered responses is that too often our emotional bullet leaves the chamber too quickly. And as is the case with the real bullet fired from your weapon, once the trigger is pulled, it's impossible to get that bullet back in the chamber. In these cases, we emotionally fire off at the present as if it were the past. We shoot the wrong enemy and leave a lot of damage behind when we do, many times. One of the warriors concluded that conversation about being triggered that evening by observing this.
So in the same way we trained our brains before, coaching ourselves to look for mortars and bullets, and to actually face them while others take cover, we've got to train ourselves to actually hear fireworks and engines and handle all the other stimuli that causes misperceptions in the present.
I think so, I told him, and I believe that you can. E. Might as well add another layer while we're here. Hero hurts aren't the only wounds that you need to address. During a different support group I was leading, I told a group of heroes, your profession doesn't have the exclusive angle on PTSD. Anyone can get it from any background.
What do you mean?
One of the participants asked. Well, I certainly don't make that statement in a disrespectful way at all, I continued. Rather, I want you to notice that there are many causes of PTSD. You may have experienced several of them before you deployed. A veteran interjected.
I did for sure. I know for a fact the things I experienced before war were worse for me.
That's my point, I replied. War is a traumatic event, but you went to combat when you were in your early 20s. You'd already lived for 2 decades. If you have unchecked baggage from then, you need to deal with that too. Don't only handle your military-related trauma, handle all of it. Another participant shared,
I experienced some of those other things in the official PTSD definition after I retired. I guess I need to deal with my divorce and the abuse and the other things that happened after.
yes, I confirmed. While you're pulling skeletons out of the closet of your past, yank them all out. Go for total healing. Now, to be clear, let's put the pieces together on what we just observed. Some heroes carry hurts from before serving. Trauma's having absolutely nothing to do with the call of duty. It's trauma picked up while serving that is piled atop of these past pains, adding yet another layer. Many heroes pick up some trauma from the line of duty exclusively. Many heroes then live out of those unhealed hurts, causing a ripple effect of other problems that can be traced to those wounds. It comes out in the form of alcohol and drug abuse, failed relationships, and other hurt-filled events, again, layer upon layer upon layer. And then some heroes experience post-duty trauma that's completely unrelated to their service, yet it adds even more weight to the soul. It all adds up. That conversation back the support group reminded me that sometimes it's not that we have either big T or little t trauma in our personal histories. Most of the time, we have a combination of both. And you and I can't redo the past. We can't go back and do it differently, but we can heal it, and we can make different decisions going forward. Understanding how our brains work and why we react in the ways that we do can help us as we move forward, navigating new terrain in life. So, in the next chapter, we'll talk about the brain and how it's wired.